how do I know if this is my inner voice? What's the difference between your inner voice and just like a random thought you had?
Why are you here? Humanity, earth, animals, there must be something. One of my teachers beautifully says, what broke your heart? And then from there, who are you and why? Because we all have a broken heart, all of us. And how do you transmute it?
I started to think, wow, I really resonate with being a medicine woman. So I started writing it down. And I didn't realize that was the first time I was remembering my past lives.
A gifted healer with over 20 years in holistic practices and a master's from Harvard, Manuela Welton's work across 44 countries inspires others to explore their higher selves and strengthen their sense of belonging.
Do you feel more connected to ancestral or to past lives?
I used to feel more connected to past lives. Now I feel more connected to ancestral. And now I'm wondering if ancestral connects to past lives.
All of these mystical beings are real. They're just in a dimension we can't see.
Or can we?
Trust flow, surrender, let go. Trust flow, surrender, let go. I'm the one I've been waiting for. Trust flow, surrender, let go. Trust flow, surrender, let go. Trust flow, surrender, let go. I'm the one I've been waiting for.
Welcome back to the Highest Self podcast. My name is Sahara Rose, and on this podcast, I love to take spirituality, the divine feminine, intuition, manifestation, and make it really modern, accessible, dare I say fun? Because that's the thing. The spiritual journey is not about just going into the dark trenches all the time, but rather integrating your joy, your full spectrum self into the equation. So my own spiritual journey has been really about listening to my inner voice. You know, when you're like, honest with yourself and you can finally say that thing that you have been feeling, but you maybe didn't want to admit, or you were distracting yourself from, maybe you just had like a feeling of loneliness and you quickly went on your phone or ate a bunch of chocolate to like really sit with that thing. That for me has been my spiritual journey. To sit with my truth, to be honest with myself, and also to be in communication with spirit. Hearing the synchronicity, seeing the signs, seeing the divine guidance that we're always in. I feel like we're always being directed somewhere. And this lifetime is about really listening to the cues, getting really curious about the direction the wind is blowing us. And we don't know where it's going to lead us, right? But we can know that those are the breadcrumbs guiding us towards our dharma, our soul's purpose. And that this life is a divine unfolding of that step by step, petal by petal. So in this process and in this journey of over 10 years, 8 years of which doing this podcast, I've come across so many incredible spiritual teachers, intuitives, guides. And one of my favorites who you are going to hear from today, who is my personal like intuitive that I always go to, is Manuela. And she is Colombian mystic, but also bringing this to diplomacy and really around the world. We're both projector 4/6s in human design, which is that kind of like the role model and also humanitarian. So we both have those sides to ourselves, but especially with the new spiritual life coaching certification that we have at Highest Self Institute, I've been really diving deep into how we as just, you know, people living these day-to-day lives where we have families and kids and jobs and all of these things. How can we connect to our inner intuition? How can we know if it's the voice of fear or if it's the voice of our inner guidance? And when is it the right time to make a decision on something versus like waiting for more information, and just like all the little micro nuances when it comes to really tuning into your intuition. So we're going to be talking about all of that and so much more. Let's see where spirit leads us in this conversation. And before we drop into this episode, be sure to hit subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast. That is the best way to stay up to date on the latest episodes. We've got this in video format, so if you're just hearing my voice, be sure to also watch our fabulous outfits on video as well on Spotify, YouTube, or the Apple Store. This is the best way to stay in the flow with future conversations and also allows the podcast to reach more people. So hit subscribe so I can keep vibing with you on all future episodes. Now let's get into this one. So without further ado, let's welcome Manuela to the Highest Self podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Bienvenido, mi amorcita.
I always forget you speak Spanish.
Sí, vale. Pues vamos a hacerlo en español.
En español.
Sí, muy bien. Claro. Entonces, intuition, what does it mean to you?
To deeply trust your heart. And as you're saying, to listen to your inner guidance and the guidance that is beyond us.
A lot of people every day message me and they say, how do I know if this is my inner voice? What's the difference between your inner voice and just like a random thought you had?
The how, first of all, is the thought. versus the feeling, the tuning into your body, into your heart. So when you're speaking from a how place, it's coming from
The mind.
up here.
Yes.
So right away, immediately, you want to get into your heart.
So it's like, how is this going to happen? How long is it going to take?
How do I get into my intuition? How?
How?
But how?
We're obsessed with the word how.
Yeah.
I realized that was a word. How and should
Mm.
are words that were making me sick.
Right. And truly, because they come from up above versus you felt that, you bring it into the heart, into the gut, into the brain, second brain as well. So just really tuning into your body has most of the answers. And really, usually when we ask questions, it's really about listening the first word that comes to mind, or listening to the song that's playing as you're, asking the question, or seeing the signs. But it's not so much about how, because that gets you stuck and stagnant in a moment. It's allowing the fluidity of energy to move through the question that you're asking, or to feel into, the answer. And the answer can be flexible. It's never going to be a static answer. It can change all the time.
So guide me inside your body, your process of when you receive an intuitive hit. What does that feel like for you?
This morning, I had a prime example. I was getting out, I was leaving the plane, and it was like, call this person now. I was like, really?
So was this your own voice in your own head, or is it a different voice?
In my opinion, I don't have the answer. I feel like we're all different. For me personally, I feel that it is me, but it's something that is separate from me. If that makes sense. It's almost like I know, it's a knowing. So it's a clairsentient. It's like the knowing. It's like, but then I ask again, and then I feel it. And then it's in my body. It's like, yes, go. My heart starts beating faster. I start sweating, my chills. So it just depends. My body answers for me. And I do feel like we're all different in that way. So it's just learning your body's language.
So this voice in your head, it's like you had an idea, an insight. I'm meant to call this person, and then you did it. And was there something?
It was incredibly, like, they just thanked me like 4 times. It was like, thank you for calling. Yes, it was needed. It was important. And I had a key for them at that moment. So it was just this knowing. It was beyond me. It wasn't me. It wasn't me like calling to ask for something or do something. It was just this knowing that I needed to call this person at this time. It was just like, I didn't question the how, because the how would have kept me from doing it. It was just like, call now. And I trusted. I really trusted my intuition, my knowing, that's the sixth sense. This is important, and not second guessing it. I think that's the biggest thing.
And I feel like spirit works through us. Of maybe you said something on that call, which was exactly what their inner guidance needed to hear, but they weren't listening to it. So spirit worked through you.
Absolutely.
And you felt the need to call this person and just say, I'm proud of you. And like, maybe it was like exactly what they needed to hear. And it's just amazing how source, when we're open, uses us as vessels. And like, we don't realize, like, sometimes I'm saying something to someone and it's not coming from me. I don't even know where it's coming from, but I'm like speaking life into them.
Right.
And I can see the way they're like lighting up and how they're like fully receiving. And they're like, you have no idea how much I needed to hear that right now. And I'm like, it was just coming through me to say it.
Yeah. And even right now in this conversation, I'm like, my ears are heating up, so I can feel there's energy outside of us right now. And I just sense that my heart feels warmer as well. And most of the times I'm saying things I don't remember. So that's how I know that it wasn't me. Like, it's kind of wild. People, would always ask. They ask often to record the sessions, but because I won't, if they ask me again what I said, I can't say it again. So it's most of the times it's just streaming through. And I think you do that too. Even in that introduction, I was like, wow, that's Sahara, but then there's something in there that's like just streaming through that also feels.
It's like, remember when I was like guiding you in London, because we were in London together, and I was like, your brand is this and that. And I was like, record what I say, because I'm not going to remember any of this. Yeah. And I was trying to go back and something different came, but I will never have that same exact download. And I feel like for me, it feels like I'm like entering into this force field. And in this force field, I can't think about what I'm going to say, what's happening next. I'm just in it, right? It's like you're in the rink. And then but then when it passes, you never get back to that moment.
Never. And the person won't even get back to that moment either. It's like that was for that moment for you.
It's a portal that opened.
Exactly. Whether you take it or not. And that's up to you. It's a choice.
Can we consciously get ourselves in that portal, or do you feel like it's just sort of like a random thing that happens?
What is consciousness? We go back to that. We can. Actually, it's more powerful if you do, right? Because it's, again, a choice that you make to get into that space. And I think that takes a certain level of commitment and rootedness and understanding. The body is incredible. It's just, we don't know maybe 80% about the body, what it's capable of doing. And so I think the more that you understand yourself, both in all the bodies, the energetic, the spiritual, the mental, the physical, the emotional, the more you're going to understand how to get into this space for yourself and for people that you're around. We all have the capacity to do it. It's just having the time and the commitment.
What practices or meditations do you do to get into that zone?
I used to tell people that you didn't need to meditate up until very recently. I used to say, everybody has their own way of meditating, dance, writing, painting. And then just recently I was taught to meditate. And
what type of meditation did you
just
do?
Quieting the mind.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, the mind will then get these hits, but then it's, you see how you're getting in the way of that, how your mind, you get in the way of you and spirit. And so it's a learning and a feeling of how your mind works. And so I used to be like, my whole thing would be like, you don't have to meditate. You can just dance and paint and write and sing. And then just recently I started realizing like, no, actually there's a really strong power to quieting the mind and then listening. How you started, it's really important. I think that's really the key to anything, because listening to yourself, listening to your mind, and then noticing how your mind is often the one asking, how,
What is your unique type of intuition? Are you someone that feels things in your body, sees a vision for something, hears a voice in your head, or just knows? This quiz is going to help you understand your unique intuitive type and how you can take action on it in creating a career that honors your intuitive gifts. All right, let's get into it.
So trust your intuition, trust your inner wisdom, trust your inner guidance, close your eyes and listen.
And I feel like they're all different, but I agree, sometimes when I've sat with any kind of plant medicine, I've wondered if I just sat consciously with my thoughts for 8 hours, I may have gone to this exact same remembrance. The medicine helps you, for a while I was working with Hape. And for me, it would just cause me to go into the deepest meditation. I would do all of this, it wasn't, so I guess it wasn't meditation, it was more of a contemplation, right? Because meditation is really quieting the mind, being in that place of stillness. Whereas for me, it would let me really watch thoughts and dissect them and what's under them and do a lot of really deep shadow work and things like that without getting distracted. Where in my conscious, awake mind, I would get distracted, right? So it caused me to really sit with myself. But then, I realized I don't even need that. I can just sit with myself. So I think these things can sometimes be a tool and a very powerful one. And then you're also working with the consciousness of that plant as well. But I told you, I did the 10 days with the rose, sitting in silence with the rose. And it was the most life-changing thing I've ever done. Yes, the frequency of the rose. And it was because I was just sitting in stillness. And I wasn't doing a meditation, but I would just stare at the wall. And as I'm staring at the wall, I'm yeah, I love this home, but do I really need this home? Who would I be without this home? And, everything. I was just really pondering. And I feel like we don't do that in our society, and then we can't hear our intuition.
We don't. And we're going faster and faster and faster. And now at the time, there's no solitude or quiet anymore. So to take 10, people are you're telling me that I have to sit on my own quiet for 10 minutes? It's yes, to them, it's an hour, and so slowly I've been moving the 10 minutes to 30 to 45. And then you start playing and work, playing with time. There's and then it just doesn't become any time. And as you're saying, you just dissecting the thoughts is incredibly powerful.
And are you working with a mantra or just practicing with your breath, or what is your meditation?
I think the idea is to at one point do nothing. That's really, I started with everything. I started move with dancing. That was my meditation. I used to leave my body and see everything. I used to leave my body and see everything from away from my body. And then I would see people, emotions, energy, all of it. And then I got back into my body, and then I started really building relationship with my body. So building the relationship with my body, and from there, that started, I felt safe in my body, and therefore the quiet and the silence didn't scare me anymore. And that's when I think ultimately you don't want to be doing anything. It's just really quiet, listen. And I think even then, the more you do it, the more the thoughts go away.
And I feel that's why, we do yoga, we meditate. I mean, we do yoga, we dance so we can meditate. It's like, that's why it was created that way. So you can release that like nervous energy in the body. Because if you're just like wake up and you have all this energy and you sit down and meditate, sometimes it's hard. But if you do some asana, shake your body, something, it's like finally you can release that and really like sit with what is.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's that still point. That's what we all want to get to. And it's been fun to, try everything else. I think it's also, that's part of the spiritual path as well, is to have experienced all of it, most of it, play with everything, and find out what's for you, find out what you like, whether it's, I tend to take a lot of people through painting. A lot of people love painting. And I think that's such a spiritual practice because you're not controlling, painting outside the lines, letting go of the what it looks like, the expectations. And it's pretty profound, And we were just talking about this most spiritual path is through relationship, to connect to one other person and really build a life with them as well. So it just, everything is spiritual. We can look at that as, and everything connects you to the intuition at some point.
Absolutely. So you're going to be a guest teacher in our new spiritual life coach certification. And one thing that we really train our coaches to do is really knowing the discernment of when to share an intuitive hit versus not, because I have seen, like if we look at like the textbook psychic from like back in like, Cleo and like those, and it's like, this horrible thing is going to happen. And it could be like a lot of like, just like projecting things out into the space, whether they received a hit about it or not. And then that person is like going to manifest that because they're so afraid of it happening. Versus I also feel often we get intuitive hits and we're so afraid of saying something that we say nothing. So like, how can we have discernment around, and I know you're going to dive deeper into it, but just a little bit of like, when do we share an intuitive hit we have about someone else?
It's taken some time to learn that not all the information that you get is to be shared, and the person might not be ready for it. And so I think it's, more times than most, the person will ask for it and you will know. I think it's again, it's practice. It's how I've gotten in trouble for it is because I would get intuitive hits and then not ask for permission. And I often ask for permission, not so much in with words, but I ask the spirit, like, are you ready to listen? And you'll hear a yes or a no very clearly. And then, maybe you ask the person actually, like, I have something for you. Are you willing? Is it like, are you ready for it? Or are you willing to hear it? And sometimes no. And I think boundaries and respecting people's boundaries is really important, especially in this work, because a lot of times people are not ready to listen.
And how do we know if it's something genuine for them or it's our own projection?
Oh, that's a big one. Yeah, I think we are all projections of each other. So often for me, I'm always very aware of my relationship that I'm having with the person. And a lot of my work has been to like actually break down who I am in all levels so that I can come as clean of a mirror as possible to the person. So I've actually understood my 7 bodies, including the physical body. And so when I feel things, so I would, if somebody has broken their ankle, I feel it in my ankle, but I feel it a little bit more separate than my body. So I'm giving an example. So it's not in my ankle. If it was my ankle, it would feel rooted in my body versus like a tiny bit out of my body, right? So, and for intuition hits, for example, I think it's just you really knowing yourself, and then knowing who you're talking to versus like, just like, like word vomiting, being really careful with that. It could really actually harm someone.
Yeah, something I always teach is like, you got to be clear in your own energy first, because if you're coming in with all your mental drama happening, you're not a clear channel for that person. And it's like the ancient Egyptians said, the spiritual practice is really the path of purification.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, how can you purify? That's why we sage and shake and meditate and let go, so we can be these open vessels. And that's only from the place that we can like really hear. And that's interesting that for you, if it's like someone else's ankle, it feels outside. I often feel like when someone's speaking, I'll feel like pain in my shoulders or my stomach. Like I almost like empath their physical pain.
Yeah, well, and the stomach is a point of connection, right? So often cording comes in the stomach. It's our umbilical cord. It's one of the strongest points in the body to actually tune into intuition. The gut, it's the second brain of the body. So you'll feel everything there, actually. In ancient traditions, Guatemala, Central America, women wear a belt here because it's the faja, because it's such a powerful spot to connect to people, right? So it's a protective space. And the shoulders, actually in Eastern medicine, it's the gateway of the soul. So, you know, it's in acupuncture also. So that's, the shoulders are the points of the gateway of the soul. So, you know, it's, again, learning the body's points of connection. Where are you feeling it? Why are you feeling it? And people carry so much in the shoulder and stomach. And it's a lot of people's not cleared emotions or experiences.
Yeah, I feel like when I am out of balance, like especially if I'm stressed, I will start having digestive issues. And that's like a clear sign for me something is off.
Yeah.
Pain in the shoulders for sure, weight of the world. You know, I know a lot of women to the lower back, the feminine, the hips, emotion, you know, ankles, even like stability. So it's so interesting to see your body as like a map of where you're holding on to things.
Knees moving forward. Right.
As we heard a little crack.
Boop.
So how do you like tune into if like an ancestor or spirit guide or something else is coming through? What does that feel like for you?
I've done that before, and I try not to, actually. I can tune into ancestry. I can tune into people that have crossed over. But I'm really careful with that as well because of energies, right? Who are you allowing into your field? Who are you allowing into your body? I mean, so many channels. I was just listening to, you know, a very well-known channel, and I was listening to them speak, and it's like, yeah, I don't really necessarily feel like you're connecting to the highest timeline possible, and who is moving through you, right? Or who are we allowing to come through us? I think it's very important to talk about boundaries in this work because a lot of people open up their energies. Going to Egypt, they open up their energies and they just allow anything in. And then, you know, I work with some of them. I'm like, where were you? Like, what do you have here? Again, for me, the path has been to become more and more of myself. And it sounds a little bit like, you know, why not tune into all the beautiful energies that are out there? And also, can we trust our energy to know that instead of having people kind of join and we can do it. Again, we can all do it, but also can you trust your own energetic source as well?
I think that's really an important conversation because a lot of us pick up on entities. And that's something that people don't want to talk about. And I like, okay, so before I was of the belief of like, there is no negative energy out there. And I don't believe in spiritual protection because if I feel like there's something I need to protect myself against, I'm going to manifest it. And there is a truth to that. You know, I have seen the people who are the most obsessed with like protection are like the darkest of energies themselves, you know? So there's a truth to that. That being said, what I have learned is in the spirit realm, there is everything. And there actually is a need for spiritual protection. That's why every single lineage has it, whether it's a sacred symbol like an ankh, you know, the Nazar, the evil eye, sage, palo santo, copal, like wild rue. Every culture has their own form of just like cleansing, protection, energetic boundaries, hygiene. So can you speak a little bit more into that? Because I do feel a lot of people go into spirituality and then they're like a huge, not all, like the whole light language thing. There's definitely like entities coming through there. Not all, but some. I cannot watch someone do light language.
I can't either. My respects to people that do it, but I can't. It's like I can feel even just talking about it. It's like,
because it's again, I'm not saying all, it's just not my, I have a huge no of like, do not watch this, you know, or these things you see on Instagram where it's like, if you're watching this message is for you. And they're like doing all this energy work on you through the screen. I'm like, that is not pure and clean because they're pretending that they are with you and they're not. And that's very deceptive. It's like deception magic.
Yeah, they're magic. I mean, polarity.
magic.
It's truly.
So let's get into this.
Polarity. I mean, you're speaking ancient traditions. We go back, who knows how long, of ancient traditions before we had, like, people, all they did was this, right? Study earth, study the plants, the roots, the rituals, and light, dark, somewhere in between. People were doing everything, opening gateways. And I don't have the answer, but, timelines and the earth, like, we have many, many, many timelines, whether it's past, present. I believe in parallel. And so you're opening so many gateways, portals. People are working with candles. Who knows? Everybody's doing everything. And then there are people that don't believe in it at all. But when you're opening those spaces, it's you're as you're saying, you're really allowing all this energy to come in. And then people don't even know what they're doing. I have worked with people that did labyrinths. Apparently that creates portals.
What are labyrinths? Like walking through a labyrinth?
No, it's like a crystal grid of sorts.
Oh, they created a crystal grid.
I've never done one, so I wouldn't be able to tell you what exactly it is. I'm sure people can, but what I know is what they opened and what they carried because they opened it. So my work really started with actually understanding that part. I've gotten a little bit out of it because I think it's such a different way to see the world. And I can still feel and see people that are carrying things. And then yet I got to a place where it's like, I don't need to live in this world for now, now.
It's important to know, but I don't think stay in it, because we can get into this huge thing of fear of like,
also,
that's, and then that can turn into its own vortex, which can lead people into this like born again Christianity path that a lot of spiritual people are going into, where it's like, everything is now satanic. It's so interesting how as humans, we just jump to such extremes and we like really need to learn nuance, It's like, yeah, there are some people working with tarot cards and candles and spells that are not of the light. There are. And there are some people doing it of the light, that are amazing.
Yeah.
And it's everything. So it's not like tarot cards are satanic, that thing is satanic, because then it takes us back to the patriarchy, where every feminine form of healing, which is all of this stuff, is like evil and satanic. But then also, it's not all good either, Well,
and then we emasculate or we take out for the witches, right? I was just in England and spending time there. What was the witch? The witch was actually a woman working with the earth, a relationship with the earth, the soil, the waters, the connection to that, creating potions. But something got twisted there, and then there was a creation of a negative story. But in reality, women are still doing it. And really, it's a connection to the earth, which we are losing somehow. It's like we no longer have that deep rooted, I think it's slowly coming back, which is beautiful. But that's like deep connection to the wisdom that the earth has, the indigenous wisdom.
So what do you do before working with someone as an intuitive to have energetic protection, boundaries, and also call in like for the highest light, for their highest selves?
The biggest thing I do is that knowing in my heart and in my soul and in my light, I am light, right? So nothing can this is something that's taken me quite a bit of time. I used to do this prayer and put light all around me and mirrors and do all these things. And then suddenly I started actually embodying this, and I didn't really necessarily need to do I do a prayer. Words are very powerful for me. That like supports the energy. But then I also just know that I embody light. Like I am light, and I work for the light, and I am here to be of service to the energetic body in whatever form that takes. So and then I get clearings every so often as well, because I know that we're picking things up all the time. So what I do, it shifts and it changes all the time. And I give myself permission to grow and change and learn new things and try new things and try new hats on. But it's very simple. It's actually
what kind of prayer would you say?
And usually as a channeled something so I root my feet on the earth, and I thank the earth, and I thank spirit, and I thank those that are here with me, guiding me, protecting me. I am, protecting myself and those around me, and I am serving and stepping into the highest light and good and service for those that I'm working with, opening this energetic portal so that I can be of highest service in light, And so it just comes through depending on what I'm working with, because currently I'm working with a lot of cancer, actually. And so, that's a whole other energy. And it's a deep one. And in that, I ask for a lot of clear guidance to support the person to clear or help them activate.
And then how do you close the container after working with someone so you don't hold on to that?
Gratitude, gratitude, gratitude. And then I just shoot it out into the core of the earth, and then it transmutes. And then I kind of bring in a flame around me. So I transmute it with the flame.
And do you do this all right then, or do you do it later in a meditation?
I do it when I'm with the person, and then I wash my hands. Water is really important, so it just depends of what I'm working with. But washing your hands, salt water is incredible. The ocean, if you have the ocean nearby, jump in, or a bath. But the elementals are very, very strong allies. And yeah, usually if it's too strong of a energy session, I shower, salt. But then if not, it's just working with the earth, and she's got our back, It's really learning to be in relationship with her again.
Do you work with like Agua de Florida or Sage or Palo Santo, any tools?
Yes, the Agua de Florida. I have the most amazing one from Colombia.
And what is it for people?
Natural. It's a natural one. So the Brazilian one, I actually don't resonate with.
Has alcohol in it, right?
Yeah, it's like I can smell it. It's like, oof. But there's one in Colombia, and we can probably link. It's beautiful, natural. There's coca leaf, and it's just a spirit. Like it protects. It just when you smell it, it kind of clears the negativity.
How do you work with it? Just smell it.
Rub it in the hands, and then you like move it through your aura, and then you just smell it. And that smell will just like awaken the senses. Again, the senses are super powerful. So smelling it will just reinvigorate your body.
I actually got my first Agua de Florida in Guatemala. And what was coming through me to work with it is I like put it in my hands and I kind of splash it behind my shoulders, of like taking care of the unseen behind me. And I feel I did it right before this, but like I would definitely feel an energetic shift working with it.
Well, it's coming to me as you're saying it to put it under your feet also, right? Like
I always, when I sage someone, and even for myself, I do the yoni and under the feet.
Well, portals.
Yes.
I would do it here too. Here too. Here.
Top of the head, throat. Yeah. Yes.
The heart and the back of the heart.
Yeah, I feel it's like a pattern interrupt, in the more conscious way. It's like you smell something different. You're in a ceremonial space, but there is a reason why. Like, I'm curious, do you see like the spirits in the room shifting when like sage or Palo Santo is lit? Like, what is it energetically doing?
Yeah, it shifts. I mean, for Palo Santo actually for me calls spirits in. I don't know if this is my own thing.
They say sage clears, Palo Santo smooths.
Yeah, for me, when I put Palo Santo, I'm calling something in. I'm calling ancestors.
Because it's so rich.
Yeah, there's something. It's the sweetness of the smell, I think, that people are attracted to. The spirits are attracted to. I mean, sage clear, it's like, it just cuts. It's like, it cuts.
They always say if you burn sage and someone doesn't like it, they're the bad energy.
That's a shirt.
Exactly.
You don't like my sage,
don't like
you're
it,
bad
it's
energy.
Good job.
That's right. Rosemary, frankincense, highlight west. That's a beautiful one. It's just, again, it cuts. It's a different sense. I would get curious. Everybody's so different.
The rose is such a protective.
That's my favorite.
Yes.
Actually, what do I do? Rose water. It's like my favorite. Rose water, rose incense, rose everything. It's the highest frequency. Rose tea, when I'm working, I'm drinking the rose tea.
Rose tincture.
Making
everything. Your own rose balm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's, if you want to really actually amplify and elevate the energy, it's the rose.
And that really brings a lot of divine feminine energy, but it's also a lot around energetic protection.
Yeah.
Because the rose has thorns. So it shows you all of the energy leakages in your life.
Ooh. Yeah, I feel that.
So how can we, like, in partnership, share maybe what we intuitively see in that person without maybe being their coach, being their healer, or being like demasculating in any kind of way?
I think the world is shifting right now. I started this world 17 years ago. My God, and I've seen it shift. But when I started I would talk about it. Nobody was with me, you know? And so I've seen it shift tremendously. And I think we're stepping into an era where we're going to become that for ourselves. We're really going to, I think it's going to take a few years, but I do feel that like that knowing, and we're going to step more and more into our knowing. And then by becoming that clear, vivid vision of ourselves, then we're going to be able to see that very clearly in somebody else. I think we're stepping into also telepathy. I don't know if you've had that happen recently.
Majorly.
And no words needed. You're just in somebody else's mind, heart, spirit. And so something's shifting right now in the world, and our communication is going to be changing with it too. I really feel that.
If you're interested in diving deep into shadow work, ancestral healing, tuning into your intuition, Ayurveda, ancient wisdom, ceremonies, rituals, and so much more, then you are designed to be a spiritual life coach. This is someone that is a guide, an oracle, a person who dives people deeper into their own truth. You powerfully ask people questions to dive them deeper into their own understanding, and use your intuitive gifts, whether you are someone that feels, sees, hears, or senses, or knows. And this is exactly what we train you to do in Highest Self Institute's new Spiritual Life Coach certification. Over the next 6 months, you'll be diving deep with myself and my team in learning all of the tools and modalities to create a private practice as a spiritual life coach. And you'll be coached every single week, one-on-one with your peers, to actually apply these tools into your own life. So imagine how far you will be 6 months from now, every single week, diving into your shadows, your healing, your intuition, your dharma, and so much more. You know, when you're in silence and all of a sudden you get this aha realization that completely shifts the course of your life? Imagine if you actually created space for that and were coached by someone who took you deeper into your truth every single week. So the way the training is created is every week you'll receive a module from myself and my co-founder, Dr. Neetha, teaching about all of the tools and practices, including our highest self method of spiritual life coaching, which is only found here at the Institute. Then you'll have a live Q&A call with us where you can ask any of your questions. I will also be laser coaching you. So this is the only container that I personally coach in, and the realizations that you will have and see other people have truly are a force field. Then there is a weekly live practice pod where you will actually be able to practice in breakout groups the coaching practices of that week. And then you'll be able to receive feedback to really give you confidence in coaching, which is something I have never seen in a coaching institute before. And our unique approach to spirituality is ancient and feminine. So if you are drawn to the body, the womb, the heart, the intuition, love, beauty, ceremony, ritual, and art as a spiritual pathway, then you are on a divine feminine spiritual path. And this looks very different than the hyper masculine or new age spirituality that is what most of the space is. So we really created this curriculum by women for women, honoring our femininity. And we also don't stay surface level. We dive deep. You know how we do it here on the podcast. Imagine going even deeper into the how and giving you the tools and practices to share with other people. Yeah, I have felt such a deeper call to just like being in silence, even with friends, of like, we don't need to talk. We can just like be in silence. And I feel like there is more like telepathy, and even just like being with friends and do ritual together, dance together. It doesn't need to be this like taking up all the space through talking thing anymore.
Right. And I think like we are having a conversation outside of this conversation. I like feel this, and as I said, like I feel like we're here, but our spirit is having a certain different level of conversation, and we're translating it into words. We're attempting to.
So what do you feel that spirit would like to be said right now on this podcast, specifically to the souls that are listening in this moment?
But like what I was feeling already before that is like you're attracting a lot of people that are wanting to learn how to do this, because we're stepping into more and more of this energy, right? So I think people are becoming more curious. How does this work? What's
because we're having a higher level conversation of how to actually be an intuitive here. And I feel that like, I'm so grateful, but I feel like I attract those people who are like, yeah, I did the yoga, I did this, I'm ready to share this.
Right. And I get that a lot in my work. How can you teach me? Or I can teach you to shake off everything you've learned, to let go of everything you've learned, and get curious with who you are, in the sense. So I'm sure that what you're teaching here is people becoming more and more authentic to themselves, right? I'm guessing because that's who you are. So I'm guessing you're teaching that. And so it's really shaking everything you've learned and the conditioning of what you carry. And then who are you at the core? Like, what are your gifts? Do you like to listen? Do you like to, do you listen? Do you feel? Do you intuit? Like, what is your language? And then get really, really curious. I'm guessing you're also taking people through like notebooks and writing, like what's their way? Curiosity, really, truly. And there's no ending. As I said, I started when I was 6. And then life took me to my first mentor when I was 8. I'm still going, and I still feel like it's just the beginning. So it's just because the planet is shifting with us, there's no end to where you can go. So don't think that there's a destination here. It's part of the journey is to just learn more and more about yourself and really feel into, whoa, okay, here's another level. And then just when you thought you were healing this, there's another thing, and then there's another thing. And it's not just about, I think that we need to step out of the world of healing because I think we're already whole. It's the exploration of our soul, the exploration of our psyche, the exploration of our dreams, collectively, individually. But I think that, this November, we're shifting into the next 26,000 year cycle, age of Aquarius, which is collective. So how can we dream together, and how can we dream a new world together? Even with everything happening, like how can we elevate our frequency enough that we can create this together and come back to the mind and the heart and bringing into community? What's the collective dream?
How do we know if something is the voice of our intuition versus our fear? Because sometimes we may be actually receiving guidance like that's showing us a shadow. I don't think our intuition is always, yeah, everything's going to work out, because then that's not real,
Yeah.
And so I feel like people kind of almost say, oh, well, if it's not like uplifting, then it's not your intuition. Sometimes your intuition is saying, warning sign, girl, don't do that. But then how do you know if that's the intuitive hit of don't walk down that alley, don't enter into that relationship, versus like a fear based on traumas?
Let me just feel into that, because I think that's where people are afraid of feeling their intuition because of previous experiences of that happening and being wrong. So they stop being curious. So, what I'm sensing is the body. Again, we go back to the body is giving you the signs. Like, do you go back to the gut feeling, right? Butterflies sometimes are not actually a good sign. Butterflies that are actually careful. I used to get this pinching, like pain in my stomach. And that was a warning. And I didn't listen to it. So it's just really, again, what is your way of knowing what's your truth? What's your truth? And how do you find that truth?
So yeah, like what I really receive from that is like, look backwards at when you have not listened to your intuition and what did that feel like in the moment, to start to figure out your own language of your intuition of like, I got the butterflies, but I continued dating him and then he ended up being whatever. Now I know the butterflies is like a warning signal for me, but it only happen in like retrospect, right?
Yeah. And it's a knowing. You just know. I feel like you just know. And when you're questioning relationship, for example, right? Like you met someone and then you have to ask all the intuitives and then you have to ask that's a knowing that there's something that's not fully there for you.
You know me so well, but that was a huge part of my own journey of like, I would ask every intuitive astrologer, psych, everything. I'm like, what do you think about this? And what do you think about that? And what do you think about that? Because, after the infidelity, I didn't trust myself, right? And do you know what's crazy? I can share this here, but I was going through my old notes on my phone.
You knew.
And I have never seen this until last night, and I'll just share it here on the podcast. And I did this like 10 days of like SIBO gut healing thing. And I had to keep a journal every day of how I felt. And I was staying at my in-laws' place when this was happening, my former in-laws' place. And I kept having dreams that he was cheating on me. And then in the notes, I was writing, but it's not true. I have to trust him. It's just my own fears. It's my own traumas. It's my own this. And I think you also kind of have to just choose to trust, you know, because if I was like, I had this dream, so it must be true, but I have zero evidence of it, is like, I could just be going on my own projections and dreams. But now going back to that, like 4 years later, I'm like, oh, I was actually picking up on something.
Well, but start listening to the signs, because I bet you it wasn't just the dreams. What else was there, you know? And I think the signs start showing up when you're ready to break through or break out.
But then it's like looking back at that moment, it's like I had that dream. It wasn't consciously coming from it. There was no evidence, you know? So it's like, how do you know when you have a dream of something and like it's real? Because I feel like that's something that like stresses people out about the feminine. We're like, I dreamed it, so it's real, you know? And it's like, and emotions are fickle. But then looking back, I'm like, damn, I was spot fucking on.
I actually had somebody ask me that today because they had a dream of, you know, water, boom. Anyway, so yes. And often I say water is an emotion. Dreams can be prophetic and dreams can also be emotional.
Right.
That's true. And that, I mean, there's a whole study on dreams and, you know, Carl Jung, dream psychology. There's tons of resources on that. Often we have to also realize that we are all parts of our dream too, right? So, I mean, and that's what Carl Jung says as well. There's a deep study within that, and that's a whole psychology of it. And I think it's not being afraid of it. And what you did is taking note of the dreams and taking note, how many times have you dreamt the same thing? And what's it sharing? Is it shifting little by little? Or, you know, just taking note, I think is really important.
Yeah. Because sometimes I feel like dreams are like an emotional like waste bin where it's like all your unprocessed emotions, you play it out. So it's like if you watch bad news, it's in your subconscious and then the dreams are that. Or you watch a movie, you know, I start dreaming about that movie. That's why I can't watch anything. I only watch romantic Bollywood films. I'm like, that's the only thing I'm willing to dream about. You know?
I'm the same way.
Because I'm like, I'm in the movie with them and I will spend the next 3 weeks processing it, you know?
Agreed.
Yeah. So it is hard, but I have found for myself, my dreams have been very prophetic.
I agree. And I mean, that's astrology placements, Pisces, you know, I don't know much about astrology. I shouldn't be speaking on it, but I do feel like there are some of us that come very much with that connection too. Currently, I've been dreaming a lot about my parents. And, you know, I have been told that like dreaming of your parents, if they've crossed it over, it's them coming to get you. So I was like, oh my gosh, is it my time? Am I going to die? But then I realized like, oh no, the veil is very thin right now. Right. So we can feel everything.
Because we're in the time of Samhain, Dia de los Muertos.
Exactly. And I didn't realize. I totally forgot. I was like, oh, okay. But then that's it. So it's, again, more information, I think.
Yeah, it's so, you know, I have like my bestie Rosie, she dreams every night something and it happens like the next day. It's
Those
like
are pretty powerful dreams. So.
Spot on, powerful dreams that I'm just like, what did you dream of? You know? But I do think it's also like if you are someone who relies on someone else, even like I love oracle cards. I have my own oracle card deck, Yogic Path, but it's like to not rely on the deck, rely on the pendulum, rely on the anything, and just I really use them as like the stepping stone.
Agreed.
To listen to my own intuition.
Yeah. And I think it's not taking everything so seriously. Really. I mean, it's like you got the warning sign.
So do you think though that some things are just destined to happen and there's like nothing you can really do to stop it?
It's a pretty big question.
Just shifting over.
Things are destined to happen.
like certain things, I'm like, my relationship, I believe all of that was destined.
Of course.
You know, meeting him, it was like, it's perfect because it led to this moment. I have so much gratitude for that.
You know, because I work with so many people and I see a pattern, and maybe it's my own pattern that I'm being shown. A lot of us get stuck in that, well, but this has happened to me and this happened, you know, it's like, and then they just get stuck and then they start looping. But then we don't realize the gift that each situation can bring us. All of them have a gift, all of them. There's no situation. If I told you my life story, it hasn't been the easiest, but I've turned everything I've alchemized everything into a gift. And I've thanked every situation for what they had to teach me in order for me to be where I am right now. And I know that it might continue to be easy and it might not. And I'm prepared for that because that's what we come here to do, is to live. We're here to live all spectrums of.
So how much of it do you think there are certain people you're meant to meet, things that are supposed to happen, careers, deaths? How much of this is destined versus free will? And do you think the free will piece is certain things are destined? For example, let's say, I was 23, I saw myself writing books. Mm-hmm. That was destined to happen. Now it could have taken 20 years, it could have taken 10 years, it could have taken 2 years, depending on my free will. Or is it free will is maybe it will happen, maybe it won't?
Time and place, soul, contract, self. I think there's many layers of this as well. I think, we're similar, but we're very different. But I think we have that same energy of we see something, we go for it, we feel it, we move and shift into that place of we know we have to be here. Why? We don't know. And then boom, boom, everything happens. Not everybody has that, but maybe they can develop it. I feel like everybody can be open to it. And of course it comes to, where you were born, all of the different, everybody has different opportunity. But it's also I know a lot of people that were born with no opportunity and have built incredible lives for themselves because of that knowing and that trust and that desire and that passion. And I think that it takes the vision and the going for it. And I think it's something that really is built. And I go back always to curiosity as a value. It's why are we here? Whether you have the resources, whether you're not curious, why are we here? Why are you living the life that you're living? Why are you being given the dharma and the path and the family and the relationships and the lessons that you're going through? And what are we learning? I think it's just so beautiful to be in this life and so beautiful to be in this body. And I'm so beyond grateful, and not just body, but I think just relationship and seeing the world and exploring it and learning about it through everything, through the flowers, through the walking the street, through the stranger's eyes. I'm often saying hello to the strangers and saying thank you. I don't know. I live in a place where I'm just grateful for what we have. And I think that gratitude can open experience and can open curiosity and can open that destiny. I think that's the word. It's just why, passion, forward. Why are you here? Humanity, earth, planet, animals. There must be something. One of my teachers beautifully says, what broke your heart? What broke your heart? And then from there, who are you and why? Because we all have a broken heart, all of us. And how do you transmute it?
Yeah, I have, the further I've gone in my spiritual journey, believed more and more that wow, so much of this shit is just destined. Mm-hmm. So many of the things that we're meant to learn in this lifetime are soul contracts. And you can't stop someone from learning their lesson. They got to walk through it. It's we have to have the amnesia, the forgetting, so we can go on that journey of remembering. And it's and that's why we go on it. That's why, and it's so easy to see with your friends of why are they going into that relationship? Can't they see? It's their soul needs to do that dance mm-hmm. with that person to hit the level of rock bottom they need to have the awakening that's going to take them to their next initiation. What's sad is some people don't learn the lesson. Yeah. They continue to repeat it. What's hard is to not also live in that fear of is this the same lesson? And then that stand still that I feel a lot of people do after they've been hurt of I will never be hurt like this again. And then the fortress and the protection and, and at the end of the day, I think so much of that even path is chosen too.
I agree. Yeah. And we don't talk about the ancestral piece, what you're carrying from your ancestors and what you're here to break down and through. And, it's you're carrying, it's not just your soul, you're also carrying your family's soul and I'm still wondering about past lives. I still feel perhaps we're connected through ancestral somehow.
Do you feel more connected to ancestral or to past lives?
I used to feel more connected to past lives. Now I feel more connected to ancestral. And now I'm wondering if ancestral connects to past lives.
I believe some of our past lives were in our ancestry. You know, like most of us have reincarnated in our lineage before. It's interesting because I feel more connected to my past lives because that is what has brought me the greatest luck and expansion. Of course, I have the gifts of everyone in my lineage, and that's like part of who I am. But a lot of and of course, it's the momentum, but it's like, I'm not going to be like this. Like my lineage has taught me, like, I'm ending this cycle. I don't want, especially the closer parents, that kind of thing. Whereas past lives has brought me, like, obviously India. It has brought me like my deepest wisdom, right? And I'm not Indian in this lifetime. Whereas Iran, where my family is from, has showed me the war consciousness that has lived in my family, you know, patriarchy, aggression, narcissism, like all of that I got from my ancestry. I'm like, shit,
thank you, ancestors.
You know? Thank you. And I'm like, I'm not passing any of that on, you know. Of course, I love the gifts of my Persian ancestors, the Sufis, the mystics, Zoroastrianism, like carrying all that forward. But it's interesting because I'm like, I still feel more connected to my past lives in India than I do my like actual Iranian culture in this lifetime.
You're right. I actually, you know, if I go way back to my first, I had regressions to like first lifetimes. Lemuria, underwater, no language, crystal. Yeah, you're right. That's a beautiful invitation actually for people. Right now I'm focused on the ancestral because I'm really focused on breaking certain things.
Yes.
I'm almost done.
It's where all of our healing happens, is our ancestral lineage.
Yeah. But you're right. When we think about expanding, it's past lives. I mean, I haven't had many that are like, except for that Lemuria one that then turned me into like an 8-year-old boy in Egypt that got killed. I had a book. That's all I remember.
How did you remember your past lives?
Regressions.
Quantum hypnosis healing technique?
Yeah. Well, there's a few. That's one of them. But, you know, huge because it's like the room is at a certain temperature and then the body just turns frigid cold. And
they do that on purpose? Because I was freezing during it.
No, it's because you leave your body.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I was shivering.
Same.
And then it took me to a past life in Egypt where I died of being so cold.
Okay, I had that in Russia. Maybe that's and that's why I didn't like the cold. I was terrified of the cold.
I feel like I'm going to die.
Yeah, I couldn't be around.
Of course,
the snow.
these fears come from our past lives. Like I have always been deeply afraid of veins. Like I can't even like look at like it's like gross. And I know that I don't even want to talk about it, but like I in some way bled out and it was related to veins, you know? And it's interesting though, because when I have I remember a lot of my past lives. It started for me when I was 21. I did this like study abroad in Paris and I had no friends, no one to talk to. Everyone in my class was Chinese, so they didn't speak English. And so I was just alone all the time. And so I would just like walk around by myself, sit by myself and think. And it's not like I was like bawling out either. Like I was like sitting in like buses, like, you know. Anyways, I started to think, wow, I really resonate with like Guatemala and like being a medicine woman, like, and then I started to like visualize like this like old lady with white short hair and she's wearing a pink t-shirt and I'm like her. And then I started to be like, I really resonate with like African dance and culture and music and drums. And I visualized this like 13-year-old African girl with like a big wide smile and she's just like dancing to the drum beats. I'm like, I feel like, and I'm just thinking this, I'm like, I feel like that would have been me. And I start thinking about cultures I feel drawn to, archetypes I feel drawn to, like, and then what would my role be? And so I started writing it down. And I didn't realize that was the first time I was remembering my past lives.
And then you were just automatically writing.
Yeah, I just started writing it all down. And to those days, those are my past lives that are like the most prevalent. And I've done quantum hypnosis healing technique. We've had a few podcast episodes like from 2018. We can link them below with different QHHT, which is Dolores Cannon's technique, which is interesting. It's this many hour long thing that the first 2.5 hours you tell them your whole life story, you know? And I was like, okay, like, and it's interesting because you're like, why am I telling them my whole life story? But then when you start doing the regression, which they're guiding you through, which is kind of like a very, very deep state of hypnosis. At first, for me, I felt like I was just making it up. I'm like, I don't see anything. Like, I don't want to lie to you and just say something. She's like, just say whatever's coming from your imagination. And you go through many different ones. And then after you kind of break it down with the facilitator, and every single lifetime, whether that was a real lifetime or not, because like some of them I was like a leprechaun. Like, I don't know if that was
I could
real.
totally see you as a leprechaun.
Was I? But I was like this annoyed leprechaun that like lived in like this like cave, and like I just wanted to eat my soup, and I was very annoyed because the crowd was like going across for the fair.
I see it.
And I was like, they're being so loud. And like that was a lifetime. And like another one, I was like a figure skater, but like no one came to see my performance. And then like another one, I like did this whole thing. I was like, I feel like I'm like this like native like earthling thing, but they want to take it. And after I realized I just told the whole Avatar story. And I'm like, is that actually my past life? Is it my imagination? Is there a difference? But ultimately, every single story I told, wherever it was coming from, related to something in my life. And it showed, where is your imagination even coming from? You're getting it out of the blue. Where is the blue? It's coming from somewhere.
Imagination, magic. Yeah, it's beautiful. I think it's important. It's true. I also still believe that I don't think it's a past. I think it's a parallel. I think we're actually living all of these experiences at the same time. And it's like, I see it. I used to think past, but there's no time, right? So I see it as holograms, and it's like, and then there's the lives of the leprechauns. We were unicorns. We were dragons. Have you explored the dragons? This is new for me.
I've not. I have a lot of friends into the dragons. They've still not come to me. I have seen elves before.
Elves, fairies. I mean,
fairies,
England.
obviously mermaids,
Yep.
but
Mermaids.
Yeah.
I had a friend teach me about mermaids in the water. Mariah, we love her. And she was opening the portal in the ocean. I was like, oh my gosh.
what did she do to open the portal?
She's just a mermaid. Like, she's a mermaid in this lifetime. And so she has a deep connection to the ocean. And we were in the ocean, and she just like, let me show you. And then there's like dolphins, and it was amazing. I was like, wow, I didn't even know mermaids existed. It's like, they do.
Oh, I went so deep into my mermaid lives, like 2019-ish. I went to mermaid school. Like I literally went, this girl, Hannah Mermaid, teaches like mermaid school. And I was like, I need to focus on this. And you're like free diving in the ocean, learning how to hold your breath in mermaid tails in the ocean, like practicing how to swim like a mermaid. And then we did this epic like photo shoot with these giant 26-foot manta rays, but there's all this plastic in the ocean. We were like the mermaids, like dying of plastic, and like to raise awareness. It was really beautiful. But it was interesting how that lifetime was coming online. And I do feel certain past lives come online for certain periods of time, and they guide us, and it's like what you need. And I feel some of us that have had a lot of lifetimes, old souls, it's like every year I'm kind of channeling a different lifetime, and it will be like an initiation, like a teaching. I'm sitting, it's like studying with a teacher, and I'll be like in the mermaid initiation, which was all about like play, but also diving deep and the waterways and the feminine. And then like after my divorce, the Neteru, the Egyptian cosmology, deep in that lineage, and, not just going to Egypt, but studying in Egyptian mystery schools and really diving into that. And then after the rose, it was like back to my Vedic studies, and I'm in that, and who knows what will come next. So it's interesting how through the stillness, through the meditation, through all, because if you guys are like listening, like, how are they doing all of this? It's like, I feel like we just get really still.
We do.
And then you start to notice like, where are my thoughts going? Like what music do I want to listen to? Like what words are coming through me, and follow it.
Well, and where did we lose that, right? As children, we have that open, like that soft spot in the top of our crown that like doesn't close till we're like 5 years old. We're so connected to those worlds. Most people are going to, would listen to this conversation and be like, are you crazy? But it's like, we still have that soft spot. We still have that open imagination into the worlds. They're there. For people to close off to that beautiful experience, it's like a huge invitation for people to like get, again, the curiosity, the childlike curiosity of the dragons, and most of the tales came from that, movies, all of that.
What are the dragons? What is your
God,
work with them right
cute.
now?
They're like little chubbies. I mean, they're powerful too, but mine is like a little chubby purple dragon. It's so cute.
It's like a spirit guide.
Yeah, she's just fun. She's a spirit guide.
So this shows up in your meditation practice?
Yeah, it's shown up in deep meditation practice. And then some, like a friend of mine just recently spoke to, they have a name, I can't remember the names, but I was like, I didn't even think that there was actually a world of dragons, which there's like a whole population of people connected to it.
Oh, huge.
Yeah.
It's in every single mythology around the world. So all of these mystical beings are real. They're just in a dimension we can't see.
Or can we?
It's like we're not meant to see them with this eye because I think it would just be probably overwhelming for us, but we used to. Did you know in Finland, the ways that the highways are set up, literally like the physical highways are set up, are based on the path of the elves? So I remember one of the first times I did psilocybin, I was seeing these like little beings on the ground. It was like these like little like elf gnome things. And they had like no personality at all, but they were like very focused on their way and they were like weaving on the ground. They had like a pathway. And I was like, are these always around? And I realized that, sometimes you like lose something or like moves in your home. The elves moved it.
Yes.
And then I learned, because I told Tara, the founder of Four Sigmatic, about this, because he like really works with mushrooms and this. He said the Finnish highways are set up to not get in the pathway of the elves. So everyone, when they're back in the day, they didn't even need psilocybin because they were in that frequency all the time. But even in psilocybin, we're all seeing the same elves on the same pathway. So this is real. It's not like my own projection. We're all seeing this dimension at the same freaking time.
Well, Iceland has the houses for the fairies. You can't touch them, right? And do you know about this?
No.
Iceland has you cannot touch the fairy houses. So
these are full houses that are empty that are built for the fairies.
But they're not huge. They're tiny. I think like gnome highways.
Yeah.
It's a deep culture, still very connected to the mythology of it all.
Have you worked with fairies?
I am half fairy.
I see that for you.
Yeah, for sure.
You're such a fairy.
My sister is like grandmother fairy. I love fairies. I have a whole story. I don't know. It feels true in my heart that we lost our world. And that that's why most of us are kind of like roaming around the world, kind of trying to find home, because it's like planet Earth is, but also like, I think that there is, we're looking for home. A lot of us are.
Like our old home was destroyed?
It was a planet of sorts or something.
Do you feel those of us that are intuitive come from a different planet?
So this is a question I think we all have. And I don't know if any of us actually come from Earth. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I have asked that before to myself, do I got really quiet and I asked where am I from? And I got Earth. And I got seriously, but I think I've been here a lot.
I feel I am from Earth as well.
Yeah.
I know some friends that they have known their whole life. I feel like an alien and I'm not from here. And you see even some kids feel that way.
Yeah.
What's your blood type?
Oh, positive.
Okay. So I am an Rh negative.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Which is the rarest blood type. And it's interesting because Ancient Aliens did a whole episode. If anyone's blood type is negative, so it could be A, B, B, O, but negative, right? Rhesus negative. We were never Neanderthals. I don't know when, but it was pretty recent that all of a sudden people of Rh negative started showing up on Earth. The highest place where they are is Basque, Spain. And did you know in Basque, Spain, their language and the writing of their language is not connected to any other Latin language in the area? Because if you look at French, Italian, Portuguese, Spanish, hello, it's so connected. All of Europe is connected. If you look at then the Nordic, there's similar words, same alphabet, The Basque one, if you look, have you ever seen Basque writing?
No.
It is like alien writing.
Really?
It's like Sanskrit, kind of. It's squiggly and so interesting. And their language is completely different. And almost all of them are Rh negative. Yeah. So there's this book called Bloodline of the Gods because I went into this, I'm like, how does this make sense? And basically, what this book shared and what Ancient Aliens and the belief is that the Anunnaki, which were this, galactic star family, were coming to Earth and kind of mining Earth for minerals, but also energy. Mm-hmm. And so they created a hybrid of humans mixed with Anunnaki, because then they could do things at warp speed, right? And they were more intuitive because they were mixed with this starseed, right? And so these are the people who are Rh negative.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and that's interesting because I've never felt like an Anunnaki, though I'm obviously very, very mystical and always since the time I was a kid, but it makes total sense. And it's interesting too, because all significant partners in my life have been Rh negative as well. And my parents are obviously Rh negative. It's we find each other. It's very weird.
They came through Egypt. Is that right?
Anunnaki, yes, they were in Egypt. Like Egypt was really like Sirius B is that galaxy. But like Anunnaki were like the original starseeds that like came to Earth. And then like everything else was after.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
Yeah. And I'm in no way the expert in all of the starseed things. I've done
learning
some episodes on it. It's not my forte, I would say, but it is really interesting. I mean, there's some great, like Billy Carson really dives into it. Matthias DeStefano, like there is a lot there, you know? And to me, what I found interesting about learning I was Rh negative was like, yeah, I'm surprised you're not actually, because it's like, it made sense being very intuitive as a kid. Like I never felt like I was part of my family at all. Like it just feels very, I'm like, sometimes I'm just like, yo, why did I choose this one? Like for real, like I'm like, okay, like there's deeper, and I keep finding more lessons, but it's like burning yourself. Like here's another one, you know, but I do feel that us starseeds, light workers, sun beings, however you want to call it, we do choose to go into families where there is like generational traumas, because we are meant to be that lighthouse to bring it to places. Because it's like, what does the lighthouse do? Just by being so light, it casts the light towards everything around us. If we all chose the same hippie parents, you know, it's like, great. We would just all be like, woohoo, like everything's possible. Yeah, which freaking next lifetime, please. But I think we choose to like divide and conquer. You know, it's like, okay, you're going to hit that family. I'm going to hit this generational trauma. You're going to hit the addiction. I'm going to hit the patriarchy. And then it's like, because then we can make the ripple effect all over.
We've gone through it. So we know, we feel it. We can attune, we can be empathic towards somebody that had similar life stories.
Yeah. And then it's part of our dharma.
Yeah.
You know, I believe we choose our parents as the microcosm of the macrocosm of what we're here to solve. You know, like it makes so much sense that I would choose my family, you know, my dad being very controlling and aggressive and patriarchal, so I can be expansive and feminine and liberated and help other women do so. Because I had the enemy at home, you know, and it's like, and to learn to love him and to learn to accept him, but also to have boundaries and know I will never fix and heal him. You know, and I think that's like the nuance I've learned with ancestral healing is like, oftentimes the final level of the ancestral healing is like, and this is as far as the soul's going to go in this lifetime. And that's okay. You know, I feel like it's often still that like little girl in us that's like, if I do all the ancestral healing work, then they're going to change and we're going to have the relationship I always wanted. And it's like, and just let them be.
I have come to that conclusion. You're not doing this for anybody else. Yeah. Everybody has their own journey, and you have to accept. This is new for me. I used to cheerlead everybody on, and now I'm like, you're exactly where you need to be, and that's great. Yeah. Good for you. Keep going. You know, we can't be responsible for anybody's healing.
Obviously, my dad has been the big catalyst for my spiritual journey. He's an atheist, like really just not into any of this stuff, and very like in the media, right? Like the war, the this, the that, and like yelling and all of that. And it's interesting because I did a lot of healing sitting with the medicine on his soul, and like his soul is so beautiful and his soul is so pure. And then I'm like, oh my God, I want to like travel with him. I love him so much. And then I like go back and see him in person. I'm like, oh God, oh God. I thought this was going to be fun, you know? And I'm like, I'm backing away again. And it's like, it's like this work is you're actually working with their soul and you're working with their higher self. And they feel it deep inside. Because when we do this work, they're feeling it. Their human ego self might not say it. Maybe it's not until their deathbed. Maybe it's not until after they've passed.
Yeah, I was about to say they don't have to be living. The work I've done with my mom since she's crossed over is amazing. So we're best friends, which we weren't when she was living, you know. We didn't really understand each other. And now it's like, oh my gosh, I'm just like you. Wow. Mm-hmm. So the work we can do even when they've crossed over is huge as
totally.
Well. And, you know, generations past, not just your parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, they all feel it. And then you're also doing it for future generations as well.
Absolutely. Oh, so much good stuff. I'm so excited for you to come be our guest teacher at High Self Institute. So where can listeners connect with you, learn from you further, and book a session with you?
I have a website, which is my name, manuelawelton.com. And that's pretty much it. That's where you can find my sessions and messages and Instagram as well. And I'm coming out with a podcast as well.
Yes, which I was just on. So be sure to head over to our website. We will link that in the show notes below. So thank you so much for tuning in. I'm so curious, your insights, your thoughts. Please share with me in a review in the iTunes store. And also as a free gift for leaving a review, I will send you my womb meditation. This is an 8-minute, super simple meditation you can do to connect to your womb space and ask her for your guidance, because she is your house of the divine feminine, and receive the answers. So head over to the Apple Store, type podcast on your iPhone, leave a review, take a screenshot, and email it over to me at sahara@IamSaharaRose.com. You can find that email and all of the links mentioned today in the show notes. Be sure to join Manuela and I in Highest Self Institute's new spiritual life coaching certification. We're so excited to dive deeper with you, help you really take your intuitive gifts out into the world, because it is needed. We need the light workers of all shapes and sizes and places and demographics, and like, you are called here for a reason, especially like this is a deep episode. And if you're listening to this till the end, there is a reason, my friend. So it's time for you to share your spiritual gifts out into the world. So head over to the show notes to get all the links and to just dive deeper in your spiritual journey. And I'm so grateful that you're here. Namaste.
Trust your intuition, trust your inner wisdom, trust your inner guidance. Close your eyes and listen. Surrender, let go. So trust your intuition, trust your inner wisdom, trust your inner guidance.